history, man has striven to move large and small objects, sometimes over great distances, to where they would be better suited to his needs. Circular tree trunks used as rollers made the task of moving heavy objects somewhat easier. A way was then found of attaching the roller to the load, and so the wheel was evolved. It wasn't long before man tired of pulling his carts about. Looking for an alternative prime mover, he came on the use of animals. But like men, they proved to be temperamental, so other forms of motive power were sought. Eventually steam was recognized as a driving force, though not a very efficient one, so the search for improved performance continued. An idea to burn fuel inside the engine cylinder led to the development of the internal combustion engine. Attempts were made to burn a variety of fuels, including pulverized coal dust, coal gas, lamp oil, and even gunpowder. In today's engines, the two most commonly used fuels are petrol and diesel oil, both of which are obtained by distillation of crude oil. Distillation, in simple terms, means that the crude oil is heated until its constituents reach their boiling points. The vapors that are given off by the boiling crude oil are passed into a tower. Because these vapors are of different densities, some rise more than others within the tower. As they cool, they revert to liquid, which is collected in a series of trays at various heights. From near the base of the tower, the heavier oils used in lubrication are removed, whilst higher up, lighter oils such as diesel oil are obtained, and near the top of the tower, high-grade petrol. There are, of course, many other fuels and petroleum-based products obtained from trays between those shown. Neither petrol nor diesel fuel enters the working cylinders of an engine in a normal liquid state. In the case of the petrol engine, fuel is reduced into fine droplets by a carburetor, which also mixes the fuel with air before it's burned in the engine cylinders. This is a diagram of the electrical ignition system, which provides the spark to ignite the fuel-air mixture in the petrol engine. In a four-stroke engine with the inlet valve open and the exhaust valve closed, the first stroke of the piston draws the fuel-air mixture into the cylinder. This is the induction stroke. The inlet valve then closes, the piston rises and compresses the mixture. The mixture is then ignited by a spark jumping across the electrodes of the spark plug. The burning gases expand and force the piston down. This is the power stroke. At this point, the exhaust valve opens, the piston rises and the burnt gases are expelled. This is the complete four-stroke cycle. Induction, compression, power, exhaust. The diesel engine looks very much like the petrol engine, but in several important respects, it's quite different. The diesel does not require a carburetor. The electrical ignition system and the spark plug are also unnecessary. However, the diesel does require fuel injection equipment. This consists of a supply pump, a fuel filter, and an injection pump, which feeds fuel to the engine cylinders through the injector. There's one other significant difference. The diesel engine has a much higher compression ratio. In fact, the volume between the crown of the piston and the cylinder head at the top dead center is usually less than half that of the petrol engine. In a diesel engine, when the piston moves down on the induction stroke, It draws in not a fuel mixture, but filtered air. On the compression stroke, this air is squeezed into the small space at the top of the cylinder and is compressed to something like 1/20th of its original volume. As the air becomes compressed, so its temperature rises. This can be demonstrated when a flat tire needs pumping up. It's not just the buoy who gets hot. The pump and connections also become heated as the air drawn into the pump cylinder is compressed and forced through the connection into the tire. A more striking example is a pneumatic match, which consists of a tight-fitting piston, a tube, and some tinder, which is placed on the end of the piston. Air is compressed on ramming the piston into the tube. Sufficient heat is generated to cause the tinder to smoulder, which with gentle persuasion bursts into flame. The fact that air becomes heated on compression is used as the basis for the diesel principle. The temperature of the air within the cylinder reaches at least 500 degrees centigrade. It's at this point that the fuel is injected as a fine spray or mist. It then ignites without requiring a spark, and the expanding gases force the piston down on the power stroke. As the piston rises, the burnt gases are expelled. The full cycle once more. Induction, drawing in just air. Compression, causing the air to reach a high temperature. At this point, the fuel is injected. The power stroke, as the burning gases expand. And finally, exhaust. When cylinders are joined together to form a multi-cylinder unit, the power is also multiplied. In this way, engines can be made to suit a wide variety of power applications. The diesel's ability to maintain its power as the load increases makes it the universal choice for construction machinery. A different kind of performance is needed for road vehicles, where speed and loads vary continuously throughout the work period. Whether in long-distance haulage or door-to-door deliveries, diesel engines provide the most economic source of power. But it's in food production that the diesel has made a great contribution. Harvesting, for instance, requires constant power with great reliability to gather in the shortest space of time the fruits of a year's work on the land. Throughout the world, diesel engines provide reliable and economic power. The diesel engine is the accepted self-contained power unit for the modern railway. It also provides fast, flexible and reliable power for light and heavy transport on and off the highway. In marine craft of all types, it adds safety and reliability to performance. Construction, earth moving and road building all rely on this form of power. In agriculture, all over the world, diesels are raising food production and living standards. Now, Now, the diesel is a prominent member of a family of engines, heat engines. They all have a common purpose, to convert heat energy from fuel into useful mechanical work. All heat engines waste a proportion of the available energy in the fuel, but some waste more than others. For example, diesel engine exhaust gases account for a heat energy loss of 24%. The cooling system and fan lose another 31%. Friction between moving parts and ancillary equipment account for another 11%, which leaves 34% for useful work. Thermal efficiency differs with each type of engine. The lowest is the steam engine at 8%. The simple single-shaft gas turbine is next at 16%. The steam turbine rates 28%. A good petrol engine, 23%. So with 34%, the diesel is clearly a leader in fuel utilization. In an internal combustion engine, a principal factor in the extraction of work from fuel is the compression ratio. This is the total volume of air drawn into the cylinder by the piston on the induction stroke, divided by the volume of the piston at the end of the compression stroke. The diesel engine has a compression ratio approximately twice that of a petrol engine. The performance of all heat engines is determined by the drop in temperature of the gases during the power stroke. The temperature at combustion is approximately 2,300 kelvins. Because gas loses heat in relationship to the amount it's made to expand, at the end of the power stroke, it's at approximately 900 kelvins. This difference in temperature is a measure of the engine's thermal efficiency. From this, it's clear that the expanding gas plays an important part in this cycle. In the diesel, the gas starts in a more highly compressed state than in the petrol engine. On combustion, it therefore expands through a greater range, finally to exhaust at a lower temperature. When the efficiencies are compared, the diesel is shown to be the most economic. It's important, however, that the remaining heat absorbed by the engine structure is controlled by a suitable cooling system. This is demonstrated in this laboratory exercise, where an engine will be deliberately overheated until component failure occurs. First, the engineer checks that all systems are functioning normally. The load on the engine is then increased and the throttle setting advanced to maintain the engine speed. An immediate rise in temperature is shown on the gauge as the engine is made to work harder. The coolant flow is then restricted, and a further rise in temperature is indicated. Eventually, the engine grinds to a halt as running clearances are taken up by expansion and the properties of the lubricant are broken down. This piston, removed from a test engine, shows clearly the effects of coolant and lubrication failure. It's essential to keep the engine temperatures within working limits. By far the commonest system is liquid cooling, in which the coolant is pump circulated round the hot surfaces and through a radiator to be cooled. Excessive friction and metal-to-metal contact is prevented by providing a film of oil between all moving surfaces. The oil pump is an important component in providing an adequate flow of lubricant. The compact and very efficient lobe type is shown here. The pump circulates oil under pressure through a filtering unit to the main, big end and camshaft bearings. The reduced flow lubricates valve guides, tappets and the timing gear train. The next important function is that of the fuel system. which consists of a fuel tank, a lift pump, a filter, a fuel injection pump, the output of which is controlled by the operator through an overriding speed governor, and the injector or atomizer. The two main types of fuel injection pump in use are referred to as inline and rotary. This one is an 8-cylinder inline pump. The inline pump consists of a series of cam-operated plungers, one for each engine cylinder, each plunger being moved up and down in its barrel by the appropriate cam lobe. To vary the engine speed, the plunger is rotated in its barrel by a linkage connected through a speed governor to the accelerator pedal. The amount of fuel delivered, and thus the engine speed, depends on the relationship between a helical groove machined in the plunger and the fuel exit port, or spill port. This is a cross-section of a pumping element and fuel supply gallery in which fuel at low pressure is shown in yellow. As the plunger moves upwards, the spill port and supply hole are closed, so that fuel, now shown in red, rises in pressure until the resistance of the spring holding the injector needle closed is overcome. This is the point of injection, and the fuel continues to be delivered until the helical groove aligns with the spill port, allowing the pressure to fall. It can be seen, therefore, that by rotating the plunger, the relationship between the helical groove and the spill port can be changed, so that the power and speed of the engine can be varied by either increasing or decreasing the amount of fuel delivered. The distributor-type injection pump has only one pumping element, and this is connected in turn to an outlet for each cylinder through a distribution rotor. Shown diagrammatically, a metering valve determines the amount of fuel delivered. This fuel, shown as yellow, passes to an inlet port and is admitted to an axial passage in the distributing rotor. The rotor, containing two plungers, turns within a cam ring. Lobes in the cam ring actuate the plungers, which apply pressure to the fuel, now shown in red. As the rotor revolves, a passage is brought into line with each outlet port in turn, allowing fuel to pass to the injectors at high pressure. The accuracy with which the fuel is measured by the fuel pump's metering system is carefully checked during manufacture and again before installation in an engine. Each outlet is fed into a calibrated container where it is compared with the standard laid down for the required engine performance. In this example, a 4-cylinder pump is under test. Whichever type of injection pump is used, the important consideration is to deliver the fuel at the right time. To achieve this, a gear at the end of the crankshaft, through an intermediate gear, drives the camshaft, which actuates the inlet and exhaust valves. The intermediate gear also drives the fuel injection pump and determines the exact time fuel enters the cylinder. In practice, fuel is delivered at a pressure of approximately 2,500 pounds per square inch when the piston is a few degrees before top dead center. Because diesel fuel will only burn readily when atomized, each cylinder is equipped with an atomizer or injector to break up the stream of fuel. This fuel must be mixed thoroughly with air drawn into the cylinder during the induction stroke and compressed by the piston during the compression stroke. Complete mixing and complete combustion is created by a controlled movement of air in the combustion chamber. There are several ways of doing this. Two basic methods can be illustrated. They are direct and indirect injection. In the direct injection system, the piston has a specially shaped cavity in the crown. As the piston descends and the valve opens on the induction stroke, a spiral motion of air is created within the cylinder. As the piston rises, the swirl is forced to contract within the piston cavity, and its velocity, therefore, is increased. On each compression stroke, a spray of fuel is admitted, and each droplet is carried round by the whirlpool so that it mixes with the maximum amount of air to achieve complete combustion. In the case of the indirect injection system, the injector is positioned within a separate chamber in the cylinder head, and the piston has a flat crown. On the compression stroke of the piston, an accelerated swirling air movement is created in the chamber by passing the air through a specially shaped passage into which the fuel is injected a few degrees before top dead center. These two Perkins diesel engines are externally very similar, but one is a direct injection engine with the combustion chambers formed in the crown of the piston, whilst the other is an indirect injection engine with the combustion chambers formed in the cylinder head. Whichever system is used, direct injection or indirect injection, the diesel converts fuel into work more effectively, more cleanly, and more economically than any other form of heat engine.